Okay, let's start. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this very first event of the year. And by the way, Happy New Year to all of you. I wish you all the best for this year. And to start, this hackathon will be held by IBM, and we are very pleased to welcome Georges Henri, a digital developer, advocate, data scientist, and master inventor at IBM. And we're also pleased to do that in association with the Big Data Club from ESCP School. But before letting him speak, we would like to say that if you have any questions during the events, just feel free to ask them in the appropriate area, and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Red One. And what you are just seeing right now, and thank you everybody for attending this this event. I'm very pleased to be the first presenter of this year's event. What you are seeing right now is IBM Cloud, and I will do all my presentation on IBM Cloud. And my focus will be on the support of IBM Cloud, which is Watson Studio. And so I invite you right now. I'm copying a URL in the chat, and I guess that everybody can see it right now. And this URL is specific for you. We have prepared that. We have tailored that specifically for you. So please click on this URL, and this will allow you to connect to IBM Cloud. And the first part of my presentation will be a tour of this of the environment of Watson Studio on IBM Cloud, and the second one will be a lab. And so if you connect to right now to IBM Cloud, you'll be able to provision a Watson Studio service, and you will be able to follow with me the lab and do almost each and every action I will be doing, do it on your own environment. This is the idea of this event. It will be a very practical one. There is no slide. It will just be demo and lab. So again, what we are seeing right now is IBM Cloud Catalog, and you see that this is a very wide and a very, very big catalog that you can see right now. So my goal is not to present each and every item of this catalog. You can see though that for most of the services there is a freemium version, which is a very good way to see if one product, service, software corresponds to. You can test, and you will be of course limited in volume, but not in functionality, not in features. So I invite you to browse this catalog on cloud.ibm.com. Actually, you don't even need to connect to be logged in to browse this catalog, but still I will encourage you to connect and to continue by provisioning the services that we'll be mentioning a little later in this presentation. So if we focus now on AI and machine learning on the left here, if I click on this little button here, see all the AI and machine learning and data science objects and services that you need to know in the context of IBM Cloud. And by the way, what you see here also exists on premise, and some of them also exist on the desktop versions. For example, Watson Studio has a desktop version. Anyway, so here in AI and machine learning, we see many services, including Watson Assistant, for example, which allows you to create chatbots. You can see a natural language classifier. You can see a text-to-speech, speech-to-text, which allows you to transform to have a voice chat, and this is very convenient. And we have many of them, a tone analyzer, etc., etc. But our focus right now will be on Watson Studios. Watson Studio was initially dedicated to data scientists, and now I would say that Watson Studio is dedicated to a team which will have to create models, and who is interested in building, understanding data and building machine learning models. So it includes, of course, data scientists, but as well as data engineers, business users, and developers who all together will be creating not only maybe a model, but also have in mind the application, which is the target of their project. So if I click on this big button here, and I encourage you to click if you already have been able to connect on IBM Cloud, you will see that there is a light version, which is a freemium version of Watson Studio, and this is the one that you want to choose if you want to do the lab in the second part of this presentation. And of course, if you want to scale up, you have a paid version, which is not necessary for learning and for testing the functionalities. All right, so let's assume that, and if you have difficulties, by the way, doing this job, I'm also copying this URL from YouTube, which is a channel where you have, and I'm going to copy that also in the chat. Let me do that right away. Here you have tutorials, very short tutorials, 2, 4, 5 minutes tutorials, which tells you how to sign up for Cloud Pak for Data. Cloud Pak for Data is the set of tools dedicated to data analysis in general, and Watson Studio is part of it. Create a Watson Studio project, you will have to do. Create Jupyter Notebooks. We will focus not on Jupyter Notebooks today, but on SPSS Modeler, which is a specific tool that I will be drilling down a little later in my presentation. Okay, so now, supposing that you have been able to connect to Watson Studio, this is how it looks at first. And you have, of course, a welcome page. And you see that the two main concepts here is create a project, is the project and the catalog aspect. Catalog is a way to allow a team to share data and to speak in the same languages, even if the data come from different origins. But today we are going to focus on the project aspect. So I'm going to create a project, but first let's drill down a little bit and scroll a little bit on that. Here is my set of, not all of them. And you have, of course, catalogs, as I mentioned before. And then also you have Watson services. So you can add services. And when you do data science, you need, of course, a storage service. And we have a cloud object storage service. So you can add services and add cloud object storage services for that. And also you want to deploy your models a little later. And the deployment environment, if you go to the catalog again, I can go back to my catalog here. We have a machine learning here, Watson learning environment. This is our deployment environment. And of course, if you want to deploy, you need to provision this service too. And there is also a gallery, and let's explore a little bit the gallery. And also you have helpful links, of course, documentation and so on. But the gallery is important because it allows you to browse data sets, notebooks, artifacts, and to begin working right away and learn to, use the tools and learn also data science if you want to learn data science. A little later in my presentation, I will also point you to places where you can learn data science and a very exhaustive article about that. Okay, so let's get back to see here. I'm gonna get back from the gallery. So that was my gallery. Let's say that I want to create a project. So as soon as I have a Watson Studio account, I can create a project. So I just push this little button, or see what happens. And of course, I have two ways to create a project: an empty one, which is the one I will choose right now. And you can also create a project from a sample, which allows you to discover what sort of animals you can put in a project, what kinds of artifact assets. Let's create an empty project just for the purpose of this demonstration. And of course, I'm going to give a name to this project. So let's call it P1. Here you see that I have a storage, which is my cloud object storage I mentioned before. If you have known, you will have a menu which will allow you to add a cloud object storage and actually provision a cloud object storage on the fly. This allows you to store data for the purpose of doing data science. You can put a description. I will skip this step. And afterwards, you can create your project. Okay, so here is my new project. And underneath, what's happening right now is all the infrastructure is setting up to create this this new project. So all the Kubernetes, the containers, the environment that you need will be provisioned, and this can really, as a data scientist or as a modeling team, you don't have to care too much about that. So I have an overview when that project was created. Actually, right now, I have an asset tab. Actually, there is no asset in it's an empty project. Of course, I just created it. I have environments. There are plenty of environments available for me, Python, R, Scala, etc. And if of different nature and different size, and with Spark or without Spark, and also you have environments with GPUs, etc. And if you don't find what you want here, you have the possibility to create a new environment. I will skip the job. Access control is this teamwork environment that I mentioned before. You can add collaborators and give them roles like editor, viewer, administrator. So I could enter here addresses, etc., to add people to my project. And I have settings here, and in my settings, again, I have my storage environment, my storage service, and I can also add other services if I want to, and I can add, for example, a deployment service like a machine learning service if I want to, etc., etc. But let's get back to assets and say I want to work right away. So right now what I'm doing is really a tour of Watson Studio, and in the second part of the presentation I will dig on the lab which will be based on SPSS Modeler, which is one tool inside this set of tools. So in Watson Studio we have a set of tools. So let's the first thing, of course, the right way to see those tools and to discover the tools is to follow the development cycle. The development cycle is access data, explore data, visualize data, transform them, model, do some modeling, validate the models, deploy the model, monitor the model. And Watson Studio allows you to do all of that. But the good thing here is that it allows you to do all of that in different ways. So you have really a panel of tools which allows to do that from open source tools, and I will show you a few open source tools here, to IBM tools, specific tools, and most of them are drag and drops. So really, depending on what type of user you are, if you want to develop doing code, or if you want to drag and drop, and you can choose and mix and match both of them. And this is what I'm going to illustrate right now. So let's say that I want to put assets, data into data assets, of course, in this project. So let me choose a CSV file and drag and drop it here directly in this environment. And of course, CSV is not the only type of data that I want to be able to access, and I will show you other types of data and other data source that that you can actually access. So now, yes, my data set is available here. I can click on my data set to just see what's in there. And this is very convenient because, of course, I want to right away be able to work. And here is my data set. It's a churn data set. Actually, it's very close to the kind of data set I will be using in the lab. So this is why I chose this data set, which is a churn problem. And the churn problem, for those who know a little bit of data science, is the kind of the hello world of data science. And I have a number of information each customers on their characteristics, and I have a last column here which tells me if those persons are churners or not. And from I will typically want to do some classification, and we'll do that in the second part of this presentation. Okay.
Sorry, Jean-Marie.
Sure.
Could you just repeat where we can get the CSV file, please?
Oh, this CSV file is not yet available. I will show you in the lab. We will add this file. But if you want to do that, this is quite possible because I created a box environment directory, which allows you to choose this file, and you have this churn.csv if you want. So let me drag and drop that. If you want to play along with me, you can absolutely do that. Let me paste that in the chat right now. And here you go.
And if I can just interrupt you, if anyone has a problem to create the first project or anything else, don't hesitate to tell it in the chat, and maybe we can give you more details. So don't hesitate.
I would be more than happy to do that. Okay, now that I have created my data set, let me continue my tour of Watson Studio on both open source and tools. Here, this is a tool that is which is embedded in Watson Studio. It's not an open source tool, and I have this refine button here. And if you want to push on this button, you will be able to transform those data. And but let me continue the tour, and in another project. Here I have prepared for you a demo project to show you other aspects of my of this environment. Okay, so in this environment, what I can is actually create. I mentioned before that, of course. Well, let me get back to P1. Actually, it's even more convenient because as an empty project, it shows me and really add from a practical point of view. So yes, I can, if I want to add other types of object into my project, I can click to this Add to Project button. And here I have set of all the types of animals that I can add. And this is typically the connection. Let me click on the connection to show you that of course I can access not only, as I mentioned before, CSV file and put them actually directly in my environment, but I can also create accesses to many types of data sources. So the sources that you can see here are both IBM data sources, databases, column databases, lines databases, operational decisional databases, etc., but also there are plenty of third-party data sources like Dropbox, Microsoft Data Lake Store, Oracle, Postgres, you name them. Okay, so this is what really I can, what the type of data set I can access. I'm gonna cancel that and show other types of animals. And I can do here. Get back to my empty project, almost empty. I have already one data set here, and I can also add other types of things here. And you see here that I can add a modeler flow, and we'll be adding modeler flow later. This is SPSS Modeler environment, which is very convenient. Okay. What else can I add? I can add notebooks. So this is again doing on an open source environment. So notebooks, typically the types of notebooks that I will be adding are Jupyter notebooks. So let's say that I want to add a notebooks here. I am a data scientist who knows R, Python, or Scala, and I'm adding a new notebook here. So let me create a Python notebook. You can see you can create Python notebooks or Python, Scala, or with or without Spark, with or without GPU. But let's take the default one here and create it. And again, underneath, what's happening is all my infrastructure is getting provisioned. I don't really have to take care of that. Of course, I have when I want to quit my environment, I have afterwards to close this environment to make sure I don't consume anymore. And in the freeware, in the freemium environment, you have 50 hours of CPU that are available for you every month. And this account allows you to work forever. It will be deleted only if you don't use it for, I don't remember, 30 or 40 days in a row.
Excuse me, Georges-Henri.
Sure.
I think that we have lost some people when at the beginning, in fact, because there are maybe a lot of people that just take time to create their account, etc.
Okay.
So I think that it could be a good idea to just recap from the beginning. I'm really sorry, but in fact, some of the students don't have an account or anything with IBM Cloud, and they don't create the first
Sure.
project with Watson Studio.
So I understand.
I'm totally lost now, but maybe if we can just recap.
But again, you have time to create your account, because in this first half hour right now, where are we? Yes, we are almost at the end of my first half hour. But anyways, how much time do you have? Because I initially that was planned for 1 hour. I can go a little beyond that if we need more time. Is it okay for you, or should we stop at 6 at 6 o'clock?
I think it depends of the students that just.
Okay, I know that Jacques talking at 6 o'clock. It might be interesting for many people here, so maybe we'll try to finish at 6 o'clock. Anyway,
and we have a
remember
question of. I'm sorry. We have a
Yes.
last question of Gaurav Kumar. He say, is it chargeable just like Azure? For
is it what?
Is it chargeable just like Azure? It's in the chat. I don't know if you.
Okay, I have access to the chat. Let me look at the chat.
Yes.
Is chargeable. Chargeable. Okay, chargeable might mean many things. So first, you can charge data into Watson Studio. So from this point of view, you can charge data into Watson Studio. The version of the Watson Studio you are just seeing what is the cloud version of Watson Studio. There is a desktop version which you can download, so it's also chargeable if you want from this other point of view. So I don't know if I answered the question, because I'm not sure what you might mean by chargeable here. But basically, yeah, there are three versions of Watson Studio. There is one which is cloud version, there is one which is on-premise version, and there is one which is on desktop version. But the one we are using here is on cloud. And again, in the first part of this presentation, you don't have to follow up. The lab has not yet begun. So yes, of course, please create an IBM Cloud account. But you have time for that, because I'm not beginning the lab right now. I'll be beginning the lab in like 10, 15 minutes or so, okay? Okay, so just want to continue my tour of Watson Studio right now. As I mentioned here, you can create a project, and of course I have that by adding assets and clicking on the notebook option for adding an asset, and here I can add data into this notebook. Yes. I cannot hear you. Is speaking, because I cannot hear, and yeah.
I'm sorry, I just forget to cut my.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, yeah, so I just inserted, pushed on this insert code button here to show how easy to work with the data Jupyter notebooks in Watson Studio, and I run this generated code that was just generating right now to see that yes, my Watson Studio, my data sets is now available in my Jupyter environment. And if I can go on doing import scikit-learn and do stuff like you might already be aware and you might already know as a data scientist. So, but I'm just doing a tour right now, so I'm not going to dig that kind of thing right away. I'm just going to continue and show you, for example, another notebook. And again, a notebook is composed of text and is also composed of code and is composed of the output of this code. So the people who are familiar with that might see things that they already know right now. And what is interesting, as I mentioned before, is that all the development cycle that you can do is Watson Studio. You can do it either during open source or using IBM tools, which are not open source, which are proprietary. And you can mix and match all of them. So here in this notebook, which is, by the way, available in the gallery, this is interesting because it's doing the whole development cycle, accessing the data, exploring the data here in this covariance matrix diagram. We are exploring the data, and it is building a model. It is after that. Exploring some aspect of the data and doing some aggregation on the data, etc., etc. And after that, import scikit-learn, apply a model here, doing cross-validation, blah blah blah, and going to the deployment of that. So this is an example of a notebook. This is another example where you use Spark. And again, this one is also available in the gallery, so you might want to search for it if you're interested in it. And by the way, I'll be doing a meetup in the next, in the next month on using Spark in Python. This is important because sometimes data scientists doing Jupyter and Python need actually to use big data sets. And so they want to use data parallelism, and Spark is meant to be able to deal with data parallelism. Okay, and here again we are doing visualization with another tool called PixieDust, and PixieDust is a tool which is much more efficient than Matplotlib, for example, for people who are familiar with Matplotlib. Anyway. Let's continue the development cycle. This is my data access panel that I already mentioned before. And we also mentioned a little bit earlier in the presentation that I was able to see my data and access my data. But if I clicked on the refinery button, I arrive on this page here, which allows me to do operations and actually to do manipulation on my data, do some calculation, convert column types, for example, doing filters, doing math, convert columns with missing values, doing joins. So let me do a join. For example, you can add a data set and do a join with another data set. So you can do all your data preparation here or data transformation manipulation here if you want. Again, you can do it on an open source Python environment if you want to too. But you have the choice and you can mix and match all of them. And along with creating those data transformation, you will have this stack which will be filled, and after that you can save it to be able to reapply the transformation that you have applied on these data sets on new data sets with the same metadata, with the same structure. Okay, so data preparation. Again, when in a notebook here, I'm going to get back to my project. Let me get back to my project to show what I mean by that. In my project, I can add things which are called dashboards. So if I click on this button, then I get into, this environment, which is a dashboard environment, which allows me to explore the data visually on a proprietary IBM environment, which is actually use the same GUI front end from BI and data science environment. And again, here you access data. And after that, you can use all types of diagram that you want. Here you see a set of the type of diagram you want. This is really a drag and drop environment. But again, you can do that the same. Well, you can do kind of the same in an open source environment if you want in your Jupyter / Python or Scala, whatever environment, if you want to, doing Matplotlib, doing PixieDust or whatever. But example, as I mentioned before, there are 4 types of persona using this environment, meaning data scientist, of course, data engineer, but also business users and developers. And say that a business user wants to explore the data, he or she can. I'm going to create a new tab here. He or she can drag and drop data here. I'm basically doing more or less, sorry about that. The data that I have are not available anymore here. So what I'm going to show you is another one, which shows you much more elaborate types of diagram that you can do. Here is the type of diagram that you can do. For example, lists or graphs or maps. And there are sets of maps that you can more and zoom available right away. You don't have to upload them. And finally, as I mentioned before, you can add assets of type modeler flow. And modeler flow is an environment which is some kind of intermediate in, drag and drop without GUI. I mean, with a GUI or programmatic. It's in the middle of them. What I mean is that it's meant for both business users and data scientists. You can actually test algorithms for doing data science and doing classification, modelization, etc. And this is how it looks when you create a SPSS Modeler stream. It's called a stream because, of course, you have this chart here, which shows you the transformation you do on data. So in this kind of street, you will have, and we'll dig in the lab. I have not yet begun the lab. You will dig in the lab a little later where you access data, transform data, and do some modelization. So here in the left part, you can see that you can do the whole development cycle here. Import data. Here are the different icons that you can drag and drop to import data in your SPSS Modeler environment. You can do some operations. Again, you can do some joins. You can do some data transformation, type transformation, whatever. Line and column transformation. And of course, there is this modeling button here, which shows you that you can also do classification, you can do segmentation, you can do regression, association, etc. All the algorithms from the classical algorithm from here is the set of algorithm. It's pretty extensive, and you can actually apply all that kind of algorithms here. And we'll do that a little later in the lab, and I will begin the lab very soon now. Another example of notebook, which is using XGBoost. And again, this one is interesting because XGBoost is open source and very, very popular. And here, again, this one is the gallery, as you can see on the upper left part of my screen here. So you can find it again if you want. And it's interesting because it goes so from the access to data to the deployment and do all the intermediate steps of the development lifecycle I mentioned before. And finally, to finish the tour, I want to mention visual recognition. Again, when I add stuff, you can put visual recognition buttons. Again, visual recognition, if I want, I can do it with open source tools if I want. For example, I want to create a Python environment with Torch, Café, etc. All the popular deep learning libraries. If I want to, I can do that in a programmatic environment, but I can also do it in a drag and drop environment. And this is what I do when you push visual recognition here. So what does my recognition looks like? It looks like this. Here I have imported the .zip files, and each .zip corresponds to one class in my problem. So here I want to recognize telephones if they are bent, broken, destroyed, etc. And I have imported that by drag and drop, exactly what as what I did just before for my churn.csv file. And I can also browse those sets. And after that, I push this model. And even with few images, it will create an interesting model. And of course, my train model is not available right now because I already pushed it. So it should be available only if I change my data sets. But I want to show you, and it takes a few minutes just to create a model. But I want to show you how you, after that, test this model. You can just drag and drop images in this environment. And it will actually apply the model, which is immediately deployed after after it's available. So this poor telephone has been badly treated, and there is 74% chance it's broken and 52% chance it's destroyed. This seems reasonable. It's not bent, it's not scratched. It's much more than scratch actually. Etc., etc. Finish this tour by a little more than 1 year ago, and let me put that also in the chat. And this is an article about how to train in data science, and it's a pointer to many tutorials. So we have an environment, a site called Cognitive Class, which gives plenty of courses, and they are like 5-10 hours classes. We have an environment called also IBM Developers, where you can see where you can have data, you can have articles, and you can have tutorials. There is an IBM Skills Gallery, etc., etc., etc. And of course, IBM is also participating to Coursera. So we have this Coursera environment here, where there are plenty of IBM classes which teach you how to develop models and to do data science. And I mentioned also YouTube channels before. There are more than what I just showed before, and this is again available in this article. This article is in French, but again, it's a kind of catalog of URLs. So even if you're not French speaking, it will be very easy for you to click and see what you have at the other side. So now let me move to the lab. And if I want to do the lab, I should first, of course, give you the URL of the lab. And I'm now assuming that during the part of the presentation, you have been able actually to create your IBM Cloud account and provision your Watson Studio service. So let me cut and paste that. So this lab is on IBM Developer, which I just mentioned before. And there are plenty of tutorials here. So I'm assuming that you have a project, you have been pushing this create project button just before. You have created a new project, and you have this this tutorial available for you, which is based on data from Kaggle. But so if you click here on this Kaggle button here, we will go to this environment here where you can actually download the stream, which corresponds to this environment, but also to the data sets. And the data set is available a little lower here. Let me just check that the data set is available on this URL here. But if you don't want to bother too much about where to get the data set and where to get and where to get the stream is the SPSS model object that we'll be working on a little later. Just go to the box environment I just mentioned before. I gave you also the URL in the chat of WebEx. Okay, so now, assuming that you have downloaded this dataset, which has a kind of strange name, but it's very similar to the Churn, actually, to the Churn set I mentioned before, and also downloaded this stream, this .str file, which is a SPSS Modeler stream. Then you will be able to now continue with me and do the lab along with me. So what I did actually to do that, again, to remind you, what I did is drag and drop. Switch environment. Please give me 1 second. You will be able to take this big 59 blah 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 data file, drop it here. I'm not gonna do it again because I did it before. So what I obtain here is in my project, I have this new data set. Okay, excellent. Now, you have not only data set to upload, you have also the modeler flow to upload. But for that, you should create a project. You should create a flow. So you do add a project, as I mentioned before, click on modeler flow here, and it tells you that this is about SPSS Modeler. Click on the flow here, and you will have a panel which tells you how you can create an SPSS Modeler flow. And you have actually 2 ways to do that. You can create a brand new one, which will be empty, but you don't want to do that for the lab. You want to do it from file, and you want to drag and drop your flow here, as mentioned before. So here I've done the drag and drop and push this create button. But as I did it before, I will cancel, done cancel, do create. I have done that already before, so I'm gonna go right away to my stream right now by clicking here. And if all goes right, we'll be in the same situation, all of us, looking at the stream, at the SPSS Modeler stream and discovering what it does. So let me get back to the... So what I'm going to do is really follow this lab. So you don't really have to take notes. Each and every step here is in this lab. Again, if you have to get back to creating your Watson Studio environment, you can go to this this YouTube channel, which gives you more detail on how to do that. If you missed some points of what I just said before. So this is my my environment. I can zoom and zoom. I have a flow, and each point in this flow is a step in transforming and doing stuff on the data. So first you have to connect your data set here. So let me actually open this. And here you want a data set in order to connect it to your data set. So you can click here on your data sets and click on this data set and say, okay, this is the data set I want. Okay, once you have done that, there are steps here that are done in this modeler flow. The first one here, well, the very first one, should I say, is this table. So actually you have created this table by going to table here. Each node here that you see on the main panel, on the main grid, is actually available, of course, in the menu to create it from scratch. So you can drag and drop that, actually create arrows as I'm doing right now. But the point is, when you do, for example, a run here, I'm running this this node. Then I will populate my table, and this is a way to actually visualize my data and see what is in my data. So yes, this is very similar to it is a very classical churn data set, as I mentioned before, and we are going to do some classification on it. After that, I have an auto data preparation node. So data preparation is pretty difficult. If you are an expert data scientist, you can do it by yourself. If you are not, you can use, if you are, for example, a business analyst, or you are another person in this team, you can actually do auto preparation, and this allows you to do many things. You have the by default preparation, which is pretty good and which typically fills missing values for you, doing means, doing a set of transformations that are very classical. But if you want to customize it, you can also customize it. So let me cancel that. After that, you partition the data set. So again, you can partition it the way you want. Here it's a 20%, 80 or 20% partitioning, and you partition it into a training and a testing set. And you can also create an additional validation partition if you wish. And after that, I have also this auto classification node. So classification, again, I could do classification on, let's do it actually. If I know the kind of algorithm that I want, I know that I want to do here, I want to do some regular classification. I can begin with a C5 if I'm familiar with C5. Yeah, creating a C5 here, and I'm running this this algorithm. So the symbol of this algorithm is a pentagon, which is with the pointy with the point upwards, and it creates automatically, when I run it, it creates this object, which is a model. And this model, I can explore it. I can do a view model and see what's inside the belly of this nice model. How much do I have left? A little more than 10 minutes. Okay. So.
Just sorry, I just entered here to ask if anyone has a question. And just to say, for people who worry about the replay, there will be a replay at the end. We will send you that after in some days. Don't worry for that.
Excellent. And also remember that the lab itself allows you to follow each and every step from the beginning, and actually do that for yourself later if you need. Okay, so now if I explore this model, the model created by the C5 algorithm, and I can look at the feature importance. And here it tells me, for example, that the total day per minute is important in the decision of a customer to churn. And the customer service also calls, the number of customer service calls prior to the to the churning is important, etc., etc. It gives me top decision rules. I can also see the rules in a tree diagram view, which I can zoom and zoom to focus on a place that is interesting for me. And of course, it gives me data on the settings of the build, etc., etc. So let me go back to the flow and continue doing the flow. So this is what I do when I'm an expert data scientist. I choose my modeling object, I compare them afterwards, but I can also apply an auto classifier. So let me double click on this auto classifier node and see what this auto classifier node does for me. And if I click on the expert tab of this auto classifier, it shows me all the algorithms that it will try. So you can click, you can run this model, but it will be very long because there is a little, I don't know, 10, 15 algorithm that would be run. So that might be a little long. And it will choose the 3 best models and apply an ensemble algorithm to combine the results of the 3 models. So let's dig on the outcome, the output of this auto classification node, and the output is this node here, which is the brown node I'm pointing to right now. So I can do a view model here. Wait.
Just a question from G. Does moderator flow works the same as notebook?
Does the what?
Does moderator flow works the same as notebook?
Oh, it's a modeler flow. It's not moderator, I guess. Yeah, sorry. Yes, it's very similar as a notebook because you can do all you do in a notebook. You can do that in a modeler flow. So you can access the data, you can transform your data, and it works as a notebook is because at each intermediate step, you can see the results a little bit like you do in a Jupyter notebook. So this is very convenient. Let me illustrate if you want. At each step, I can look at what is the outcome. For example, if I want to look at the outcome of the partition node here, I can do a preview here, or a table if I want to as well. But let's do that as a preview, and you will see that my partition node has added a column which is training or not training, testing, etc. in a 20-80% percentage. And I can do that actually at each step of my transformation. And more than that, I can add a cache here. I can enable a cache. So let's enable the cache. Let me run, for example, let me run my model here. I can preview the outcome of my model, but this is a good example of what I can do in a modeler flow. And of course, the output of a modeler flow is a new table. Each step creates a new table, actually, which is, do I forecast a churn or not a churn? And of course, in classification, I don't give only the result, I give also the probability for this result. So yes, it works exactly the way it works exactly the same way as a notebook if you want. And I could actually push that in a table again to illustrate what I just meant before. Yeah, I could push that in a table, and you see that here my checkbox here is on, which means it means that the cache has been enabled and is full. So it means that each time I'm going to run stuff which is downstream this node, the result, the outcome of this node will not be recalculated. It will use the one in the cache. And modeler SPSS Modeler is smart enough to actually recalculate this cache if needed, because something has changed upstream the node. But if nothing changes upstream the node, it uses the cache now. Okay, so I hope I answered the question. So after actually, well, where was I? I was actually exploring the outcome of my auto classifier, which gives me actually 3 algorithms, which are the 3 best algorithms among the 10 or 15 that I have tried for this data set. So I can dig those. I can, for example, dig the CRT, for example, and look at the decisions of the tree diagram again that are particular to this data set. Let me get back to the flow. I want to continue the modeler flow tour with the possibilities of doing, as I mentioned before, access the data. We have accessed the data. We have transformed the data, partition the data. I didn't show actually the visualization. I can run this diagram, which is a profiling node. Let me run this one. So again, I can do profiling inside a notebook if I want. I can do it inside my refine environment that I mentioned before if I want. I can also do it in my SPSS Modeler. So let me show you the profiling here. It's a classical profiling. Give me min, max, standard deviation, skewness, uniqueness, data, and a little diagram here. And also well, additional information about the percentage of missing values, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we have seen access the data, visualize the data, transform the data, modelization, and now I want to validate the output. So typically I can run, let me run again. I can run this diagram, which is a rock curve. So typically when I do classification, it's a good idea to run a rock curve, which allows you to separate the churners from the non-churners and to see where to put the thresholds. We have seen that we have a probability number, where to put the thresholds for those numbers. So let me show you the outcome of this model. Actually, it's the outcome of the collaboration of 3 models. So it's a very good one for the training data set. We are losing a little precision again for the testing data set, but not that much. Also, it's a little too good for me. Well, I'm not going to dig into doing actual data science here, but still, this looks to me a little too good, and I would say that as I suspect that the data is a little bit unbalanced, and this has an impact on overlearning or the precision. So personally, after partitioning, I would add a balancing step, and actually we have balancing steps available here. As you can see, I could add a balancing step in order to follow a more orthodox way of doing data science here. Okay, so now that you have a model here, how much do I have? I'm very close to the end, by the way, and if you look at the lab, I have followed almost each and every point here. I want to show you how you could do deployments, because now, assuming that we have validated the model, we want to deploy it. So what I want to deploy is actually this this model here, do some filtering here. The filtering is meant to remove the churn, column, which of course in real life you don't have this churn column. in the deployment. So remove it from deployment. And here I have this, in this menu here, I have this save branch as model. And I will give it a name, which is my model 42 ESCP, and save it. Okay, let's close it. And is that once I've done that, let me go back to my project here. I will have in my models here, I have my 42 SCP model, which I've just done today and right now. So I can click on it. So now I have a model. I have which is a model. And what is interesting here is that whatever the way you build a model, you can build it with SPSS Modeler, you can build it with Jupyter Notebook, you can build it with other tools that we have in our portfolio here. Each time you build a model, it will be an asset of the same type at the end of the day in your project. So from this step, any model you can deploy it exactly the same way. So I click on the model, I can, it gives me, of course, the input and output schema. I could promote it to my deployment space. So I have to create a deployment space if I don't have any deployment space. So here I have this button, new space, if I don't have yet a deployment space. And I select my asset, of course. And yes, I have choices for my deployment space. You have only one. I can promote it to my deployment space. And from
Yeah, sorry, we just have a question from Michelle. Is there a way to manage custom rules to text a dataset? For example, I'd like to check typography rules on a .doc or HTML formatted text, then query the text.
Absolutely, this will be a data preparation step. You will be checking from your data set if it follows rules that you want to check. So you will do transformations and you will check if your, you can check the sanity of your data, and you might have typically integrity constraints that you want to check. You will check during data transformation. Also, if we are speaking of rules, you mentioned, you saw before that in classification, typically you can generate rules, and we have seen those rules generated in 2 cases. And also what I want to mention, let me get back maybe to my Watson Studio. But it's a good idea to mention it. Let me go back to my P1 project. You mentioned that you might want to do text. Am I correct? Well, in the case you want to do text mining, this is not my P1 project that I'm interested in. This is my meetup project where I have more. So in this meetup project here, let me get back to my stream, and in my stream, which is here I go, reopen it, enlarge a little bit. What is interesting is that you have a very complete tool of text mining inside SPSS Modeler. And this is very convenient because text mining is a very difficult domain. And of course, you can do text mining using typical and classical libraries, Python, Scala, or whatever. If you are a beginner, you might want to use this text analytics here. and you have this link here, or this text mining link, which actually will build you, which builds you, which is a builder for extracting concepts from data sets. So we'll tell you this column has text, and I want to extract concepts from this text, and there is a standard way to do it. There is a default way to do it, which is very easy to use. If you want to dig into more expert text mining, then you can do that, and you can add text mining rules at this step if this is the kind of rules that you had in mind in your question. So I'm going back now and finishing my deployment here, and here in my deployment I have this deployment that I just mentioned before, and I can test
Just
my
Michel,
deployment. Yes.
Just Michel is asking if it applies to formatted text.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The question is, does it apply to formatted text? Or
Yes, it does. There is. I do not have in mind all the. Well, we can actually have a look at that here. It's not only yes, you have structured text here, and yeah, there is information here that you can get from this. I don't have in mind all the structures type that you have, but I think that it includes probably HTML, RTF, or things like that. And I can get back to you on that if you are interested in that.
it's just another question from Eric. How easy it is to go for a hybrid approach with, for instance, manual data processing and automatic learning pipeline inferences?
Well, there are two questions here. Here you can actually totally mix and match. Here I have my automatic, here automatic data preparation and automatic in SPSS Modeler automatic modeling nodes. I can go from that to a specific node just as I did, which is okay. Explore that, and I can go to my C5 model, and this is what I might want to deploy. If I want to deploy this animal here, it's very easy. I can actually do a copy and paste. Yes, here, and do a deployment here. I can actually. So yes, I mix and match both if I want. So now I can push that in a table, and I can mix and match them. Okay. Now the question might be, let me remove this arrow here. I can, by doing mix and match, you might mean other things. You might mix in, for example, Jupyter exploration and then SPSS Modeler. And there are many answers to that. One of them is that you have let me go back to my project here. You have jobs. I have skipped the jobs level here. I have jobs here. So as soon as I have the possibility to schedule jobs and to chain jobs one after the other, those jobs can be of different nature. I can have Jupyter jobs and then SPSS Modeler jobs and then whatever other types of jobs that I have. Okay. And this is what you would do in this environment. Now, to finish the lab with regard to the testing, in the lab it points you to the JSON, because my deployment is a REST API. It has a JSON protocol, and I'm now putting the JSON into my test in order to launch a real prediction. And here is my prediction. It tells me that this value has this prediction. So this person typically is 45% likely to be churning in the next 3 months. And again, it's not only in my test environment, but I have plenty of code snippets, which allows me to test this deployment from curl, from Java, JavaScript, Python, Scala. And of course, as this is a REST API, it is supposed to be called from a programming language to be embedded into an application, which is exactly the purpose of this snippet. Actually, I'm done with the lab, and I can answer if you like. Yes, the lab finishes with the deployment. I'm done with that. Maybe I should check in the chat if there are more questions. How could we do data preparation using Watson, in particular in Modeler Flow? Yeah, you have plenty of data preparation here in Modeler Flow, as I mentioned before. Let me show that to you again. You have all the data preparation primitives, which contains both column from these datasets. I could do a record operation, like do some sampling, some sorting. If I want to do some sorting on that, typically I could do some sorting here. I could do some balancing here. I could remove distinct values if I want. I can do some aggregation. I do some RFM aggregation too. There is also Simplex optimization. This is a very wide subject, by the way. Simplex optimization. It should be seen more than a record operation. Actually, it's using linear programming and operational research in general for doing optimization. Of course, there is in data preparation, you can change the type of the data. You can filter the data. You can reclassify the data, etc., etc. So yes, all the all the tool set for doing preparation is ready here. Hybrid approach. Okay, and I think I'm done with the questions. So please let me know if you have more.
I have just another one. Say, could we do data preparation? Oh no, it's okay for this one.
Yep.
Okay, Philippe, I got 2 questions. The first one is, how can I get certified? I will send to you, Redouane and Jean, the way to be certified on this Watson Studio, okay?
Okay.
On charge to you to communicate to the participants.
Okay.
So one question, I will make available the replay. Correct. I will make available the replay for you, Jean and Redouane. You will have to share with all the people, because several people ask me, they have to leave and they want the replay. Okay?
Okay.
Yes, there is this Your Learning site, which is the input for you to look at all the certification and all the badges you can get on all products and all types of skill that you might want to exercise. So let me put that here, yourlearning.ibm.com.
A last question, Georges-Henri, from Chin. After the deployment, what do we have?
Yes, I want typically to monitor, and I have tools to do that. So let me get back maybe to my catalog here. First, there is an embedded monitoring environment, which is inside IBM Machine Learning. If you click here in Machine Learning, it will tell you that you can actually do deployment, but also monitoring. You can go to the docs, by the way, and the aspects of IBM Watson Machine Learning, which is not only doing deployment, but doing also monitoring. But this is technical monitoring, which is do my environment. I mean, is the quality of my prediction sufficient with regard to the actual outcomes? I can monitor that within IBM Watson Machine Learning. But this is not enough. You might want to do more semantic monitoring. So let me get back here. And we have another tool, Watson OpenScale. Now, Watson OpenScale is meant to do some kind of semantic monitoring. For example, is my model fair, or is it? I want to monitor the fairness of my model. And fairness is a very there are two aspects which are very important after having built or while you build a model and during the development and deployment. Both of them are important. This is fairness and this is explainability. So there are open source libraries for that, which are actually this is an IBM initiative, and there are many IBM developers did, which is AIF 360, which is about fairness, and AIX 360. So both library, AIF for fairness and AIX for explainability, 360, both of them are Python libraries. And they are also embedded into Watson OpenScale to actually do your monitoring in a microservice way. So after deploying, yes, you can monitor both technically and semantically your models. There is a certification environment for everybody, and we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, I will check with Claire, and I will provide all the information for the learning paths. Okay, I will provide to Redouane and Jeanne, and then Swissa, you will have the information. Right now, it's correct. You need to be an IBMer on this URL. Okay. Do you have any question? Jeanne, Redouane?
Yes. I think it's okay, everyone. For everyone, it's okay. We can stop here. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a remark here to give at last, which is in the article I just mentioned before, and I give you the URL again in the chat. You have this IBM Skills Gateway, and this is where you get all your certification information. And now we will get back to you also if you want to focus on skills for Cloud Pak for IBM Cloud Pak for Data and IBM Watson Studio, if you're interested specifically in those.
Okay, so no more question apparently. I think it's okay. So thank you everyone.
Are here.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. It's Ruba from the Big Data Club. Thank you very much for the workshop. It was really quite interesting. I would like to thank also Club 42 AI for the collaboration and all the participants. And thank you very much, Mr. Georges-Henri. It was really interesting. Thank you for your time and for sharing your valuable knowledge. Thanks.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So thank you everyone for joining us for this event. I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to do this presentation, and do not hesitate to get back to me if you have additional questions.